Hey, I hope your day is going well and that you can spend just a few moments of it with me thinking about something that's really important. Today I'm concluding a series of devotions that I've been calling Emotions, Keeping My Feelings in Check. As I've said previously, God has made us. He has wired us as emotional beings. And we have a varied number of feelings. Feelings that help us understand what really matters in life, feelings that give life its flavor, and ultimately, feelings are the key for us having relationships with other people, even with God Himself. Now, unfortunately, if we do not have some boundaries for our feelings, we're going to experience real and dramatic problems. Now, thus far, we've talked about fear, about anger, and last week about love. And if you've missed any of those devotions, I encourage you to check out our Facebook page or our YouTube channel, or you can find them easily by going to our website, gatecitybaptist.org. But as I land the plane of this series today, I want you to think with me about the feeling of happiness. I like being happy. And unless something is wrong with you, you like being happy. Now, on the heels of the 4th of July, where we celebrated our country's independence, remember that our independence was codified in what we know as the Declaration of Independence. Now, among the things that it says is that as people, we have certain unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and what? The pursuit of happiness. Now, I do agree with the statement that as a person, you are entitled with the right to pursue happiness. However, you are not entitled, and you do not have a right to experience only happiness. Now, that's true for us as people, it's true for us as Americans, but it is something that if you are a follower of Jesus, you really need to keep a grip on. You're going to experience lots of experiences in life. In fact, perhaps even lengthy seasons of difficulty that will not put a smile on your face. And with that in mind, here's a lesson we all need to get. The absence of happiness is fertile ground for learning. The absence of happiness is fertile ground for learning. Now, what do I mean by that? Listen to what Paul says in 2 Corinthians chapter 1, starting with verse 8. He says, "We don't want you to be unaware, brothers and sisters, of our affliction that took place in Asia. We were completely overwhelmed, beyond our strength, so that we even despaired of life itself." What does that mean? Paul is saying to these believers in Corinth, we were going through some really difficult times. In fact, it was so troublesome, so vexing, so miserable that we would wake up in the morning essentially disappointed. Disappointed what? That we were still living. Notice he uses that statement that we despaired even of life itself. Now, is that the experience of happiness? Not a chance. In fact, it's about the furthest in the opposite direction you can go, the absolute opposite of happiness. Now, that's some bad news. But what's a positive in all of this? Well, Paul continues in verse 9 by saying this, "Indeed, we felt that we had received the sentence of death so that we would not trust in ourselves, but in God who raises the dead." Now, there's a lot that could be unpacked here, but I want you to see some very simple but clear truths. Paul is saying that we were experiencing these awful circumstances that were the opposite of happiness. And it is clear to Paul that God was aware that this was occurring. God knew about all the bad stuff they were going through, the unhappiness that they were experiencing. And he says that God was aware of this, and it was occurring, and He was going through these experiences with purpose and intentionality. But what was the purpose? Paul says pretty clearly the purpose. It was so that we would not trust in ourselves, but in God. Now, I wish it were not this way, but at the end of the day, as people, all of us, we're pretty dumb. We just are. We don't learn easily. By that I mean we tend not to learn life's most important lessons when everything is going great. When we are experiencing seasons and times of real happiness, we tend to think only about relishing the moment rather than how we can use that time to learn, to grow, and mature. Now, if you don't believe me, ask yourself this question. In your life thus far, when have you learned your most important lessons in life? Is it when you were the happiest and life was the easiest? Or during seasons when you weren't happy and life was really difficult? I really believe that without exception, we learned the best and most lessons in the seasons of difficulty. Now, in terms of application, what do we do with this? Now, again, we've been thinking about this whole prospect of keeping our emotions in check, including the emotion, the feeling of happiness. So if we put all of this together, this is how I would describe the application. Enjoy happiness, but do not constantly chase it. When you are not experiencing happiness, ask yourself this: what is it that God might be helping me to see now that otherwise I would have missed? Now, don't simply ask yourself that. Intentionally ask God. Pray to Him and say, Lord, I'm not happy at all about what's going on, but I realize this could be something that you are using to teach me in significant ways to help me see and learn lessons that you want me to learn. Now, for Paul, he learned in the absence of happiness how to trust in God in ways he never otherwise would have. Well, if it happened for Paul, what is it that God might use your experiences of unhappiness to show you? Listen, I get it. Unhappy moments are not fun. They stink. But hopefully you understand that as a follower of Jesus, God's primary goal for you is not happiness, it's holiness, becoming increasingly like Him. Now that only happens when we are molded and shaped by His teaching through our experiences, and most often those greatest lessons are learned in the forge of adversity, not on the mountain of happiness. Listen, I appreciate you giving me some of your time. Thanks for listening. Have a great day, and remember that God has wired you to experience emotions, but He wants you to make sure that you keep them in check.